commissioned me to do a beach piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through how I am going to make this really lovely beachy scene. The first thing you want to do is you want to lay everything out and make sure that you enjoy the layout. And then you want to take a picture for reference. I'm not sure how well this shows up on the camera, but I have my picture right here on my iPad watching this as my reference, so you can see how I did my layout and my little heart with the shells and my little coral reef here. And this is what I'm referencing as I lay out my entire project, so that way I'm not just going all willy-nilly. So first off, you want to make sure you take everything out of the frame and then go ahead and close these little things, the black thingies. And the reason being is because you want to make sure that this glass is sitting back as far as it's going to sit. Now we need to make sure that we're sealing this edge, otherwise the resin will run through, so will the sand, so will anything else that you put on here. So you want to make sure that you're sealing this edge, and you want to do that with some type of caulking or sealant. This is a kitchen, bath, and plumbing. It's Quick Seal Ultra that I'm using. I actually used it for my kitchen sink. And so now I'm just going to use this here. Now, when you do this, you want to make sure that you get a nice, good bead along the edge. It's okay if you have a little gap, because we're going to run our finger along this edge to really fill it in. Smooths it out, fills in any bubbles, and you can relocate. Now this does dry clear, which is why I chose this one. Looks white right now, but it dries clear. And most of the product is going to go on top of this. So you can always clean up the edges a little bit if you need to, but just make sure you're getting it down into there because the resin will leak through. Okay, now if you have a project like this that you really don't want to see any streaks, even if they are clear, then you can go ahead and clean this up with some alcohol and a Q-tip. When you're all done sealing your edges, you can fill this with a little bit of water and run the water around and see if any drops out through any of your sealed sides. If it does, you need to repeat this step. Clean it again, make sure everything is cleaned up where you need it to be. Down here, I'm not worried about it because this is where the sand is gonna go, and everywhere else is nice and clean now. Okay, now it is dry, and you can see the color it dries to. It's this part right here still needs a little bit more time to dry because it was a little bit thicker, but that's gonna be okay. You just really want the outside part, making sure that that's all sealed and dried. And then wherever I cleaned it, you can see a smudge, but you can also see that it comes up very easily. So you just clean it one more time before you begin. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mix up my resin and work with my sand first. Okay, so I just poured a little bit into an extra cup, and I'm gonna take that sand and I'm gonna fill it up and make a very thick consistency. Okay, so this is a little bit better, but I still want it a little bit thicker. All right, this is so much better. So I have the consistency of a really thick mud, and it's gloopy. That is what you want. This is ideal for this particular project, so that way it will cure with texture and not be running across our canvas. Now, keep in mind, resin takes a long time to cure, so it is still gonna run a little, but this will help with our first part, and then you can just keep controlling it with your finger while it is really setting. So that's going to be for about the first hour or so. but since we did make it so thick, we're not really gonna have that issue very much. And if you like that smooth side right there, which works very well for beachy scenes, then go for it. Keep it and let it do its thing. That's why I love abstract art so much, is because I could truly just let the art do what it wants to do. I'm just here as a guide. Okay, now I also was inspired by pink sands from the Bahamas. And so I really wanted to add in that particular element, even if it is just a little bit. So what I decided to do was to take the medium I love most, which is the glitter, and I'm just going to sprinkle. It's a super light pink glitter, so that way when I sprinkle it on here, it's gonna be very faint, but enough to really let you know that this is pink sands inspired. So I'm gonna drag my finger along here and create kind of my little wavy sand coming down here. There we go. That smear, you don't have to worry about that because that'll be gone once we add more resin to this particular part. So now that I have this, I'm gonna go ahead and wipe my glove off. And then I'm gonna take this pink glitter. It's just one I got from Walmart. And I'm gonna lightly sprinkle it right on this edge here. Okay, now while we're working with this though, I do wanna set things in the sand so that way the resin can stick to it and cure, but I can also push the sand still while it's nice and malleable. So we're gonna take these items that I had planned out for the sand area, and I'm gonna make sure I have my reference picture on hand so that way I can put them exactly where I wanted them originally. Okay, so I wanted this particular piece to sort of hang over this, and then this one sticking out from there, and this shell to cover the roots of this. So that's the idea that I have here. Now the reason I did all of this before I put any of my resin on here is because I wanted to make sure that they would stand alone while the resin was curing, because if it did not, then I would have issues of this sliding all over the place. And you can see that it's still pushing the sand out a little bit as well. So you are gonna have issues doing things like this if you are working with a malleable resin. If you do this on top, then you can just super glue or something and then do a clear layer of resin. That's always another option. It's really completely up to you how you want to have your sandy beach looking. So with this might drop down a little too much, so I might wait on these little guys. And same thing with these little guys. This one will be okay. I'm gonna scoop a little bit of resin here and let this come up to get onto my sand dollar. So that way my sand dollar will also be sticking. And I had, what did I have under here? We're gonna stick this little shell under here. Kind of keep that propped up just a little. Okay, so we got that. And then right here at the top, just to kind of cover a little bit of the run too, I have this big guy, which is such a cool shell. It feels super like spiky too, which I love. I think that's so cool. And then I'm gonna stick this just barely touching my resin so that way it stays when I pour my next little bit. And then this little guy sticking up right there. Okay. So those are the ones that I'm going to work with for now while this is curing. I can use some of my extra clear to work on this part now, not the whole piece touching here though. If I get my clear resin to touch this, it's going to start spreading into it, and I don't want that to happen. I want to keep this just the way it is. You can go ahead and torch it very quickly though, so it doesn't heat up the resin too much. If you need to pop any bubbles, I'm not really going to focus on that though, because I am going to have a clear layer on top after this. So I do need to focus on creating my little coral patch back here with some clear resin. Okay, and we're going to let that cure. So notice everything is going to end up being in layers. Now I also have a little heart coming up here. So I'm going to let my resin sort of form the heart that I want to follow. And I can push this around with my shells, so I'm not too worried about the heart being perfect. This, again, is just to set our shells and have them sitting and curing, so that way we can work around it when we do our alcohol ink and resin mix, which is what I'm going to use for my blue on top. Now I'm just taking some resin right over top just to ensure that all of these sort of stick together. There's going to be enough resin covering these that any streaks that you see is not going to make a big difference, but I do want to make sure that I am giving it a good enough coat without moving my shells. And I can add a couple more wherever I see fit. Or squeeze them together. Just keep working with them until you're happy, and then make sure you keep moving it until it cures enough to where they're not spreading apart anymore either. So now I'm gonna let this sit, but again, babysit it. I'm a babysitter of my resin pieces. I really want to make sure that they're doing exactly what I'm wanting them to do. So this will get babysat for the next 30 to 40 minutes now, since it's a pretty long working time, pretty open working time, and you don't want to end up not watching it for that long. I mean, I know it's annoying sometimes, but it's worth it. And then you can slightly see the pink here. I'm gonna go ahead and take my gloves off and add a little bit more glitter. I don't wanna add too much though right now, because I don't want it to expand. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more right onto this edge. And then once this gets to the end of its working time, then you can add the shells too when it's tacky. Not when it's running, when it is tacky. You can feel with your glove, if it leaves the glove print, that it is tacky enough, and you can stick your shells right on top without it sinking too much. Okay, so I'm gonna let this cure for a day before I come back to it. All right, so I mixed up my resin to be able to fill up this spot. Everything is nice and set, nice and cured. And so now I can do my ocean style top up here. And to get the nice transparent look, you wanna go ahead and use alcohol inks. And I'm just gonna use a little bit of epoxy at a time. So I'm gonna be utilizing the alcohol inks and the Colorberry pigment paste for the white. I'm going to give that one a try and see how that works for this. So for the blue, I have the aqua from the Ranger inks. I also have a mermaid blue I'm going to use. And then closer towards the back here, I want to use a darker blue. Actually, you know what? I think I like Stream better. Can't make up my mind. Yeah, these two. So no mermaid. We're gonna do stream and aqua. And then I also wanted to have a little bit of the eggplant added in to give it kind of that deep blue appearance back here. So kind of create like a nice purpley color to help bring in with these coral reefs. So I'm gonna start with aqua. That's gonna be the lightest blue, and I'm gonna work my way backwards to the darker color. So I'm just gonna do this. And I really want this just to be a nice light ocean. This one is the stream. Ooh, that's gonna be too green. I'm gonna add a little bit more of my aqua in there. Actually, let's make this the darker one since that turned out a little too dark. So add in some eggplant. Oh, there we go. That's a really pretty color. I like that one. And then I'll just go ahead and add okay, so I'm not sure what these colors really look like very well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a test piece. When I do that, I just grab a coaster. You can pour just a little. This is what it's gonna end up looking like when it comes out of the container. Ooh, that was pretty. This is the one I'm a little nervous about. It looks very greeny. Oh, but nope, that looks fantastic. Okay. So this will be my water. Now what I'm doing with my gloves is I'm just sort of going and zigzagging back and forth to help kind of blend my blues together. And then I'm making sure to push the resin up into any of the areas that it's very difficult to reach on its own. So that way this whole thing is covered. And make sure you clean up the edges of this frame because you do not want that to look bad. Okay, now I'm gonna mix up just a little bit more for the inside of my heart here, blowtorch it, and then I'm gonna add my waves. So this is really what these colors are looking like right now. If you see, when you blend them together, I'll use my paper towel for this. It's gonna help give it, this is what that zigzag motion does. Help gives it a nice blend from this top dark color down to your bottom. And that's what the ocean is gonna look like back here. So if this is hung on the wall, it's gonna be, and especially if the wall is a light color, this is gonna really show through. If it's a dark color, it's just gonna look a lot like this because you can see the wood showing through is very dark. But either way, it's gonna look amazing. Okay, now with the last bit of resin, I'm gonna go ahead and mix up for my waves. And again, I'm using the Colorberry paste. I'm trying this out to see how well the waves do. And I'm gonna really try hard not to get it onto my coral here. There's one. Let's get one that kind of goes through the heart here. right, and maybe a little one up in this corner, just to show that the waves are sort of in the same distance. I am loving this. Loving it. Okay, so now that we are done with this, we just want to make sure that we are on a level surface where we're going to set this to cure and put your dust protection over top. I'm going to blowtorch it one more time, get any remaining bubbles, and I'm going to babysit it a little bit until I put it into my dust-free zone. All right, everyone, so that's it. Let me know what you thought of this project. If y'all like this, or if you would like to commission me for anything similar, just go ahead and message me. And I can't wait to hear from y'all, and I hope you're having a fantastic week.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See y'all next time.